What is up, podcast community? My name is Cam King. This is Three Questions Podcast, episode number 72. And if you're just listening to Three Questions Podcast, these are short podcasts. I launched this podcast to really share a lot about my business, a lot of the entrepreneurship coaching that I do, a lot of the mentoring that I do. And with CK Collective, which is the parent company for this podcast, I work with individuals one-on-one, mostly at this intersection of your personal and professional life. I used to work in advertising and marketing for a long time. I did sales, and I love that stuff. And during COVID, I launched CK Collective as a way to do sales and marketing for businesses that couldn't afford to hire someone full-time, and to also coach and teach other entrepreneurs about what sales is and how easy it is, and how to build businesses and have better branding. So really, this is a culmination of a lot of things. I can't believe this is episode number 72. These are really kind of flying by. But when my clients ask me questions, or my friends or family members or whoever kind of ask me questions, I'll aggregate these questions into a way that I can answer these, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, as a way to share knowledge and bring other people onto the podcast. My time has been so limited as of late, so I haven't been able to get many guests on. And I love when guests do come on, because I ask them 3 questions about their business, and they really share their expertise and their information, and that's something that other people can take away and listen. This is not to get me famous. This is not to have me blow up on the spot. I really launched this podcast because I want to get future entrepreneurs and my clients really sharing what it is that they're going through and some of the lessons that they've learned, so that others can benefit from those. However, I'm doing a lot of these episodes solo these days, simply due to a lack of time, and I want to jump into it. So episode number 72, we're going to talk about these 3 questions. If you could time travel anywhere, when and what time period would you go to? Follow up to that would be, if you could go back in time and change anything in the world, would you, and what would it be? That's a good one. And number 3 is, who is your biggest hero or inspiration? So pretty good questions overall. I really like the format of those to whoever submitted those. That was an anonymous submission. And I'll set my timer and jump into question number 1. We'll talk about more podcast stuff after the fact. So question number 1, episode number 72. Here we go. If you could time travel, when and what time period would you go to? So immediately 2 things come up to me in mind. If I could go back to 1770s Boston and be, 16 to 20, maybe even early 20s, I think I would love to just partake in all those revolutionary activities. Everything from throwing tea into the river, from, the Boston Tea Party, to seeing the Boston Massacre, and really just kind of feeling and seeing all of that come to life, seeing our country really be born out of that. I would love to go back to that time period. Fighting in the Revolutionary War would be pretty drastic. I don't know if that would be something I would necessarily enjoy, but man, if I could go back there with an M4 or a 240, that's a different story. But I won't sort of delay there. The other time period I think would be really, really fascinating to go back to. Well, really 2 more. I think the Roman Empire, which is something that I think about every single day. I lived in Rome for a good year, and that was a great year of my life. But I think to see Rome at the height of its empire, with all of those buildings and all the madness and chaos that Rome ensued over such a long period of time, would have been fascinating to witness. I also think going back to Egypt during the building of the pyramids, whether it was built by aliens or whether they actually were enabled enough to perform all of those completely mathematical equations to build what they were building, would be super, super cool. I don't know that the life quality would be as exceptional as it was back then, whether you were a slave or whether you were even in some sort of royalty. I don't think that it would be as good as we necessarily have it today, but I don't really know. I think it would be a fascinating time period to see regardless. So yeah, the Revolutionary War, 1770s ish, and then probably Roman Empire. I don't know that it would be fascinating to see Jesus Christ go through, obviously, what he went through during that time period as well. I think that would be a very interesting time period in the Roman Empire. But living under Marcus Aurelius would probably be my pick for going back to the Roman Empire. And then as the pyramids were being built, I think that's absolutely fascinating. So those would be my picks, probably in that order. And nothing else really comes to time. I think pretty much every other time period in the history of the world was pretty bloody and brutal. So uh, definitely grateful to live in the here and now where we are, even though things are getting a little crazy. But I think that we're still probably a much more peaceful civilization than we were in the past. So that'll be that for my answer. And that is question number one. Question number two. The follow-up would be, if you could go back in time and change anything in the world, would you, and what would it be? Mm, this is a really tough one to, especially to shoot off the cuff. Would I go back in time and change anything that's happened? I would say no. No, I wouldn't. The one caveat, the first thing that came up to my mind, I'll be honest with you. The immediate first thing that came to my mind, and you're probably sitting there thinking, oh, he'd go back and he'd kill Hitler or Stalin or Mao or prevent all of these guys. Nope. I think I would save Harambe. I think I would probably stop that lady or that kid from climbing into that cage, and I would stop that. That's probably the one thing that I would do. I don't think Harambe would have hurt that child, if I'm being truly honest. And I think that that was a tragic event. And I think honestly, things really went downhill in society after that. A lot of things really went downhill. So for me, a little bit of sarcasm here today. I would go back. I would prevent that child from even being close to that cage, and I wouldn't allow that child to fall into that cage so Harambe could have lived out the rest of his life. Because, truth be told, I feel like he was a good soul. I feel like he would have cared for that kid, but I guess we'll never know. So, super short one for me. That was 1 minute and 20 seconds. I'm not going to elaborate much on that, but you guys need to submit some more better questions, or I need to get a guest on here. But episode number 72. Who is my biggest hero or inspiration? So I'll go with some people who have I'll go with somebody who's alive right now, and I would say somebody who really inspires me just from a general life perspective, and an individual who's accomplished a lot, who's also been through a lot. I think it really is Keanu Reeves. And if you've never read into Keanu Reeves' life, he's experienced a lot of loss and trauma and regret, and he's been very, very upbeat. Like, his life has really been torn apart. I think his relationship with his parents, I think he lost a spouse or a loved one or a girlfriend, and he mostly just keeps to himself. But the way that he carries himself, even as he was not well respected as an actor for many years, up until through The Matrix and up through the John Wick series, he's really been highlighted for a lot of the things that he does in between. And some of the things that he does in between is he'll go out of the way, to take photos with fans. He'll like go and work with them. He'll just hang out and talk with them. I think they've got him on camera like feeding homeless people or spending time just doing great things as a human being that you are just like, this guy really has no business in doing. He's not like Leonardo DiCaprio or something, that someone who's more self-obsessed, and kind of uses people. He's just constantly going out of his way to just be a good person. And the things that I've caught and I've seen about him, he's someone that I've really come to respect and admire. Like, the things that he does when no one is looking is much better than what normal people do when other people are looking. You know what I mean? And that's something I think is really, really admirable, especially in today's society where we can get anything you want. And if you have any sort of success or you're famous in that aspect, you can probably do a whole lot of nefarious things and get away with it. And I think that he just generally is a good human being. And I think that he would be that person, whether he was famous and successful or not. And that's something that I would like to strive to do, is to do more of the right things, even when nobody's looking, right? So for me, that's a great inspiration. That's somebody I'd like to model. Tony Robbins is another individual whom I really respect. I really respect how much he has put out and given to other people, whether it's courses or workshops or talks. The amount of research and the amount of networking and the amount of information that he's able to sort of consume and identify and live and breathe. He really, not only does he talk the talk, but he walks the walk. So the things that he's telling other people and the things that he's teaching other people as a mentor or a coach or whoever you want, those are really things that he's super, super proud of. And I can tell that just by him being himself, he's a very passionate individual about what it is that he's learning. And he's able to help and affect a lot of people about that. That's not necessarily the route that I want to go in my life with all of my business dealings, but I really respect the fact that he can, talk the talk and walk the walk. He's probably another person that comes to mind for me who's also alive. Somebody who's dead and gone, I think Teddy Roosevelt resembled a lot of really masculine traits just in terms of being a courageous individual, a great president, a leader. He was in the armed forces. He led multiple cavalry charges, and he was always a go-getter. But what he would do to sort of revitalize himself or recharge himself, he often went into nature to retreat. I think Teddy Roosevelt also sponsored the National Parks Initiative. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but he basically was the one that got a lot of national parks segregated for land, and they were given land. I think he spurred a lot of that. So for me, those are probably three individuals right off the bat whom I really and deeply respect. And I think that as long as you can be a good human being at the end of the day, I think that's probably what is most important, and not necessarily being a masculine man or whatever, but I think that finding someone who can be a hero or an inspiration. My father, of course, I think every guy would probably say that, but my father is very stoic as well, and he's able to temper a lot of his emotions, and he handles stress very well, and he's very analytically minded. And he's someone who, when things are going wrong or when things are going right, can be relied on to make the right decision. And that's also a trait I deeply admire in him. So, a lot of things all across the board. I don't think it's just one hero or inspiration. I don't think we should put our stock in one person above ourselves necessarily. But I think that there are a lot of individuals throughout time and history that we could probably look to and obtain the qualities of those people that we like, and then try to exude those qualities ourselves. I think that's a very applicable and good exercise for most people. So that's all I got. Three short questions today for this one. Thank you for submitting those, whoever that was. Pretty funny stuff. And if you want to submit more questions, you can do so over social media. That is just underscore 3questionspodcast. You can also send me an email, 3questionspodcast@gmail.com, if you want to submit questions or become a guest. Please reach out to me. I'd love to hear about your expertise, some of the things that you've learned. We can just do a quick chit chat, 5-10 minutes, talk about your life story, and maybe hit on some of the subjects that you would like to share about. But you know the format, just 3 questions. You got 5 minutes to answer each. Give me the best of your answers, and that way you can sort of listen to a podcast and carry on with your day. But hopefully you learned something here, or you have something to think about. Remember, try to answer these questions for yourself. Just give yourself some imagination time, and have a great day. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening. My name's Cam, and I'll see you guys in episode number 73. Peace.